Julie, welcome to
Yay.
Women Seeking Wholeness. I felt like
Yay.
I had to hurry and hit record because you and I would just keep talking and talking and talking and talking. Like we totally hit it off already. And I love everything that you're sharing with the messaging of like it's never too late. You haven't
Mm,
missed your window. No matter what's your age, no matter what your life station or your education level, where you're at with your family or whatever, that you can always reinvent yourself.
yeah.
And there's not a lot of people really saying that. I feel like there's so many closed systems and ways of thinking and doing and being that you go to an expert for this or that, or it's like, you better do this at this stage or that. So you're just bringing in this refreshing messaging around that, which I love.
Well, I'm so glad. I mean, because it really is what I go to for myself because I have the talk inside of my head. Like, I mean, it really, I think I really shifted into this mindset really thoroughly right before I turned 50 years old because right before my 50th birthday, I mean, I've always been really cool with my age, but up until when I was going to turn 50, I think there's that stigma in society. You know,
Totally.
it's like the black balloons, the over the hill birthday cards. I'm like, and I just have seen so many people as I've grown up that get into their 50s and they kind of like fold up and die. And so it's like you get all
Mhm.
these messages like life is nearing the end, this kind of craziness. And
Right.
it wasn't until and I realized that I didn't realize, a friend told me I was saying, oh, I'm an old lady now. I started saying, well, I'm an old lady now. And my one of my good girlfriends is like, what are you talking about? She's like, you sound ridiculous. What, you're like one of the most youthful people I know. She's like, do you know that you're saying that all the time? And I was like, in fact, I don't know that I'm saying that all the time, but now I do because you mentioned it. And what was interesting is that once I was aware that I was saying it, I edited it out of my conversations
Yeah.
with other people and with myself. And you know what's so cool?
Mm.
I ended up feeling so much younger and so much more energized and so much
Mm.
more optimistic about what's to come after I recognized that I was creating that for myself with what I
Sure.
was saying. It's just like,
Self-fulfilling
oh,
prophecy. Our words are so powerful. And I got that too. Like, well, I didn't, don't you remember like your parents and grandparents kind of talking like that?
well, my
Like you,
dad is a prime example. He was in his 50s, and I remember, he was like, "Well, I'm moving to the front line," and I'm like, "Daddy, what are you talking about? You're not that old, And as your daughter, I really don't like talking about your death. There's that.
right.
So it was just kind of like, yeah,
Yeah. And bless their hearts, like they weren't, that's just like one foot in the grave. Like, oh,
right,
my parts aren't working the right way. And even though that might be true, that all your parts don't work the same, when you speak it, there's a whole new essence and energy that generates around
so
that
true,
phrasing, and it does lock inside your marrow of your bones. It's,
yeah." And your body's like, "Okay, I'm
well,
old.
if that's what you think, here we go.
Get a walker."
So I know that you believe, we have, as many teachers do, and as many teachers are sharing and expressing now, we're in a new era of the earth. We're in
Mm.
this age of Aquarius. What does that mean to you?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I'm an Aquarian.
Oh,
So
fun.
February 7th is my birthday. So there's a little bit of
Mm.
shopping time left. I'm kidding. But no, I just feel like it's like a huge awakening. It's a lightness about it. And I don't know. I mean, I just think about how I have been my whole life. I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty open person, and I'm open on a whole different level now because of my own inner work, obviously. But I just feel like it's a time for possibility. It's a time for, I know it's not going to sound hokey, but it's a time for falling in love with life, the world,
Mm.
each other. And I just feel really hopeful around it because I do believe if everyone really truly could learn to love themselves on any level, we could solve every problem in the
Yeah.
world. I
Yeah.
mean, 100%. I mean, I really believe that with all of my heart.
I do too. And when you talk about this lightness of being and this like
Mm,
taking all the heaviness off, and To me, it's like old traditions, old languaging, like we were just talking about,
Yeah,
old systems, things. You can kind of see the slow burn of how those are kind of crumbling or people are waking up within those systems, which is very Aquarian, to be
absolutely.
awake and to notice, which is also a very feminine characteristic. You talk about how do you phrase just the goddess wisdom, ageless goddess within,
Yeah.
ageless goddess within. So what is that? What is that to
Uh,
you?
well, and I can't take the credit for that terminology or that title. I got that from Dr. Christiane Northrup, who is
Love
somebody who
her.
love her
Oh
too.
my
I mean,
gosh.
she really, considering I went through menopause at like 47, so I discovered her, probably 8 or 9 years ago because I was like, what's going on with my body? And she really was the perfect teacher for me. And she really did. She talks about being an ageless goddess. In fact,
Yeah.
my favorite book is Goddesses Never Age.
I
And
have that on Audible and I listen to the highlights of it.
yeah, and
It's so inspiring.
it is, and it's so much it's so much a mindset, and it's a feeling that you have within yourself that you can
Hmm.
access. For me, it's like now that I am a person who meditates on a regular basis, it's like I have certain meditations that I go to that where I access that feeling of my inner youth, my inner
Mm,
age, my ageless goddess side. That part of me that is just infinite and full of possibility and full of excitement for what could be. And it's
mm,
just my face just hurts from smiling about it because it really is the thing that lights me up the most. and
mm.
and what's so awesome about it is that we all have access to that. It's almost like going and being aware that it's something you can access and then going after it.
Yeah.
And it's like once you find it, it's like you just want to
That is
grab
like
a hold.
that fountain of youth is it's
Mm,
just like that. There's a word enthusios, which is the
mm.
root word of enthusiasm, but it means God. What does it mean? God within or something like that. I
Ooh,
think
I
it means
love
God
that.
within. And so when we get excited and we get passionate around something, this is like an elixir to your whole being. And it's
Yes.
like to the fountain of youth, literally. You see these people who like I've always said, I will never retire. Like I love what I do so much, which is like talking to people on these
Yeah.
kind of forums and then learning that way, and then also writing,
Yeah.
speaking. I'll never retire. One of my guru, I don't know if you want to call her my guru, but the women that I admire so much are women like Marion Woodman and Anne Baring, who are these
Mm.
deep wisdom teachers who are like, well, Marion's passed away, but she was well into her elderly years when she was disseminating such deep, resonating truth about the feminine and the
Mm.
goddess. And same with Anne Baring. If people want to go look her up, she's not super out there on social media, but she's this older woman who is like, what is the name of the book that I have? I've got to look at it because it's sitting right in front. Oh, it's something about the cosmos, the soul in the cosmos. I'm gonna hold on.
Yeah, please get it. I want to know. And I also want to know the spelling of her name. Is it Beh or Bea or Ber? I'd like to
Uh,
know
oh,
how you spell that.
okay, it's the dream of the cosmos. And Baring, Baring. I literally had to run over and look at my book. It's super thick and it's deep. And I would say she's probably in her, I don't even want to guess, 70s. I'm gonna have her on this podcast.
Ah, how
Um,
cool.
hopefully soon. We're in talks. But just women who've stepped into like it's not all about their following. It's not all about their looks. It's not all of, they're kind of past that, like, okay, whatever. And it's like, let me deliver something from my soul to yours. And let's
Mm.
talk about the real and let's go into what's underneath the surface. Let's go into the mystery and things that are hidden. And so I'm probably playing somewhere in both camps because I love the idea of influencing people for the good on social media and having
Yeah.
that rapport, and beauty is important to me, and I know it is to you, and having this embodied way about me that
Mm.
I feel good in my skin. I don't put makeup on and get dressed and whatever for other people so much anymore. I do it for myself, which has
Mm.
been a whole shift,
I
right?
love that. Yeah.
So when you talk about, and I know Dr. Christian Northrup, I just recently listened to an interview that she did, and my mouth was just like dropped. I'm like,
I
I have
know.
her Wisdom of Menopause book, which is literally like
I've
hundreds and hundreds of pages,
I've got it too.
and it's so deep, and I love it. But you know, when we're talking about cultivating the goddess within,
Mm.
we should also define what that is. It's like, what are we, because women don't always have that exemplar held up. We have to kind of piece together, what that is, because society hasn't given us a real healthy version of that. And we don't esteem the wise woman
No.
at large.
No, not at all. Well, I mean, we're so focused on youth, right? I mean, it's so about, and it is very much attached to just external beauty so much, right? And that's
Yeah.
why we're so hyper focused on youth. But I just know for myself and for the women that I work with, when you see a shift in someone, when they really start accessing their inner wisdom and connecting with their inner ageless goddess. I mean, they can do absolutely nothing to change their hair or makeup or skin or whatever, yet they glow. I mean, they look absolutely, and I can see in myself from pictures from when I was in my early 40s to now in my mid 50s. It's like I have a glow and a
You do.
radiance that I
Totally.
never had when I was younger. I mean, sure, I had less wrinkles and whatever, but I
Right.
mean, I honestly have fallen in love with myself and my body and my being and my life. And that is what to me is like you said earlier, the fountain of youth and what makes you magnetic. And people just can't look away. You walk into a room and they're like, I mean, I
Yeah.
felt the energy from other women, and I'm like, ooh, she's got it,
She's got the
ooh,
it factor.
she does. And
And the
it's
thing is,
that,
it's not confrontational to you.
no.
You don't feel that, because women are often very competitive and we're in the comparison game. But when a woman who's truly in her essence,
Mm,
and whatever that is unique to her, right? There's that inner radiance that you're talking about and that glow. It can be at first like, ooh, well, who does she think? And she is or whatever, because that's our old programming. But then you
yes.
settle into it and you're like, wow, that's so beautiful and inspiring. And
Yes.
especially because it has to do with love.
Mm.
If
And
it
and
wasn't
all
aligned with love, then we might get triggered around that, right?
100%. You're absolutely right. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it's like the girl or the woman in the corner who is, dressed in some crazy outfit, dancing to the music that is playing in the room, let's say, but she's dancing like no one is watching and she's totally in it. And I know that feeling. It's like, because have had this experience, this literal experience, seeing this woman dancing. And I was like, at first I was like, wow, she's really going for it dancing, I don't know what's going on with her. And then as I stood and watched her, I noticed that she didn't look around the room at all. She didn't make eye contact with anyone else. She was just in it for herself. And then, it was just one song that obviously moved her. And then once she stopped dancing, she just started mingling again and talking with people. And I ended up talking to her, and she was the coolest, most just open, loving, kind woman, connected, all of that. And we're still friends to this day.
Wow.
But that's how I met her. And she triggered me initially, because I was like, wait, and it's like, I remember thinking, and I said to her, I even told her, I was like, you had such a freedom that I think women don't allow themselves to have. And that's what made me attracted to you, where I couldn't look away, and also triggered me. And she's like, and then we got into that whole conversation. She's like, yeah. And it was like, we talked about that very thing. And she said it used to happen for her too. And then she, you know, got connected with her inner self. And I mean, it's when we were on the same exact journey, and now we're like, you know,
Awesome.
so.
Yeah, it is. It is so true. Like we will get triggered because it's always an invitation and a mirror for us to go, all right, what am I resisting in myself where I don't feel like I have that freedom? And I think the word freedom is probably one of my highest core values.
Me too.
Just let me be me. And then when I'm like, okay, but I'm not letting myself, like, it's no longer about me feeling judged or whatever out here, right?
Yeah.
It's why am I not letting myself liberate, emancipate, be free, what have you? And that's where it gets really deep with what it is that's holding you back.
Like that word permission, right? That, you know, giving yourself permission to do whatever that is. Cause, you know, I do the same thing. It's like I have this filter where it's
Yes.
like, okay, this is, in fact, that's part of what, you know, I wrote about in my book. It's like what I can and what I can't do. It's like, you know, no, you can't do that, or yes, you can do that. And then there's the other filter of, oh, at my age, or, you know,
Yeah.
where I live, or how much money I make, or whatever. I mean, it's like all of these things that
I
you
don't have enough
so,
of this. I don't have enough youth. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough energy. I don't. Yeah. And that process is the interior war.
yes.
It always seems to come back to not enough,
Mm-hmm.
which is that scarcity minded way of trying to talk yourself in and out of things.
Yeah.
So in your book called It's Never Too Late, you talk a lot about, and I haven't read it yet. I've read
I'm
pieces
sorry.
of
It's
it.
this time it's about you. That's what it's called.
Oh, sorry about that. But
No worries.
it's never too late in quotes written above it. This time it's about you.
Yeah.
This time it's about you. So how did you bridge that selfishness in a good way of just not only like for yourself, you had an experience, and I'd love for you to talk about it as much as you're comfortable, as I know it's
Of
a kind of
course. You
spiritual thing.
mean, do you mean to be able to write the book?
Well, just even prior to getting to a space where you're going to write the book, where you had to do this whole life change,
Mm-hmm.
and that you put yourself in a position where you were getting still and you received something really profound.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking before we hit record, the only thing that I was ever able to do in my life to slow down my monkey mind, because I was always thinking of, you know, as a recovering people pleaser, I'm always thinking about everybody else and, you know, putting myself last and all of that. So going to, in particular, yoga classes, these tougher yoga classes that I have been going to or had been going to for years. When I was in that space, I wasn't able to think about anything else in my life. I was really just thinking about how to not fall on my ass in this class, right? And hold myself up and not make a complete fool of myself in this room full of people. And but during those classes, I was able to, like, I create some space in my head. Like at the end of the class, I would inevitably be crying just because it was just such a release to shut off my mind for that amount of time. And then I would just be so grateful for the space. And then I could think of all the things in my life I was grateful for. And then boom, clarity, boom, creativity, and all these things would rush into my mind about what. So that was really the first step for me, was to physically move my body to be able to create a meditative state for my mind that I wasn't able to do otherwise. And that helped me to bridge that gap initially. So that was part of it. And then the other part of it is I was really never a journaler either, but I became one. And it was real. I mean, my journaling, swear to God, started out with, I ate an English muffin for breakfast and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I was like chronicling what I was eating. I mean, I was just like
You're like not going deep, not
right, not at all, totally up here on the surface. But, and then I started, you know, noticing like when something would upset me, and then I would go and grab my journal and I would say, you know, what is really upsetting me? You know, and then I would try and get a layer lower. Is it this? Is it, you know, is it what he said, or is it how I responded or how I took it? You know, and then it's like you start, you know, I think writing is one of the most powerful things, because especially handwriting, because
Yes.
that they call it spelling, that
Hmm.
when you're, because you have to be there to write a word, and it
Yeah. And
does
it
help
engages
you.
all your faculties. It's
Yeah,
touch, tactile, sight.
you
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. And it really just kind of pulls you in. So I think those two things really helped me to start bridging the gap and opening up to some higher wisdom for
Yeah.
myself.
And you'd mentioned to me too that you were doing a breathwork session
Yes. Oh, you're right.
and you
You're right. You're
had a
right.
beautiful thing come
Okay.
through.
Oh my God.
Because
Okay.
I did breath work in Costa Rica. I've done breath workshops or whatever, and I've had some mild tingles and some good, I would say some clarity.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went to Costa Rica in February, we did breath work like 3 different times over like, I don't know, an hour or two each session. And I was like, whoa, this is a whole world of multi-sensory, multi-dimensional, like it was so, so powerful. See, I would love for you
Yeah.
to share with our listeners what
Okay.
happened for you.
Absolutely. Okay. So earlier at the beginning of the year, I signed up for an 8-week breath work, and it was tied to the chakras too. So it was a chakra clearing. So 2 coaches that I'm friends with were running. Well, one I was friends with, I met the other. And so I signed up for it because I really want to get more in touch with my woo. I want to connect more with that side of myself that I've, pushed down from my religious background. There's that.
Oh,
We could
honey,
talk
we
about
could
that
go all through. You
too.
have no
So,
idea. We talk about that on this podcast a lot, that religion can actually bless their hearts. It's patriarchy, but they have not cracked the code on helping a person really go within and honor that innate wisdom.
never. And so, yeah. So for me, I signed up for this because I had 1 or 2 experiences that were mild with breath work with my friends before, and I was like, I'm just curious. I feel like there's something more there, and so I signed up for this. And so the very first chakra is, of course, the root chakra, and I had no expectations. In fact, I was right over here on this daybed to my right when I was doing this, and the root chakra is connected to your family, right? Obviously your
Mm-hmm.
roots
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And so just as some backstory, I am the 4th daughter, right? So there's only 4 girls in my family and I'm number 4. And sometime about, I don't know, 25 or 30 years ago, I overheard my mother say that, they're like, wow, you have 4 daughters. She's like, yeah, I'm so blessed to have 4 daughters. She goes, but, I originally only thought I wanted 2. And
Mm,
it's funny how like you hear that and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And I'm not angry with my mother. And I know that she
sure.
loves me. It's not that. It's just that, it was a piece of information that I think I was meant to hear for whatever reason. And I didn't know why. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, fast forward to it was January of this year. And I'm doing this breathwork session around the root chakra. And I honestly doubted that this was really what I was seeing or experiencing because it was so like not something I'd ever experienced before. But I literally saw like I knew that I was inside the womb again because
Mm-hmm.
I could see like it was like dark pink, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like around me, and I couldn't see through it, but I could hear my heartbeat, or I could hear a heartbeat and breathing and my own breathing, of
Mm-hmm.
course. And I could also feel all of the anxiety and worry and fear that my mother was having. It sounds crazy even talking about it, but I could feel all of that because I know that my dad was traveling. My grandfather had to take her to the hospital. Here she is having her 4th child. She really only wanted to have 2. Now she's having a 4th, feeling trapped, feeling scared, feeling, like, how am I going to make this work? I mean, whatever that was, it was just angst and fear. And I didn't feel wanted, like
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of not feeling wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I started crying during this breath work, and I was like crying and just still doing the breath, crying, crying. And then at some point, I exhaled and I just didn't inhale, and I just stayed there for a couple of seconds, and then I heard a voice, and I'm sure it was my own, saying, I hope I don't cry. I want you.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. And it was like,
That's
oh,
so
and it
beautiful.
was like, I want you. And I was like, whoa. I mean, and it was like, total goosebumps.
I have goosebumps too, because
I
it's
mean,
like,
but it's like, it was the most profound thing. And I was, and I came out of that, and I was still on this Zoom video call, and I like shut it down because I'm like crying. I'm like, what just happened? And I started just, reeling around that, and I was still crying. And then I went to my journal and I just started writing. And it was like, and because I didn't want to let it go right then. I wanted to investigate this. And it was like, and I realized that that's actually been something, a belief that I've held about myself that was connected to my worth and my value and my belonging and all of those things. It's very, very primal. Belonging is like a huge primal instinct,
yeah,
for
yeah,
survival, right? And it was something that had been blocking me to be even more expansive in my life. And I swear to God, since January, I've changed so many things in my business, in my life, just in my relationship, within my family, with my mother, with so many things. It's just
yeah.
opened up so many things for
Well,
me.
and
It's
that
like,
makes
wow.
sense. This is like the whole, we talk a lot on this podcast of a woman fostering her desires,
Mm,
and wanting what she wants. And the fact that you had that message, I want you, is
right.
I do believe that our soul is always trying to bring us to our greatest longings, our
Mm,
highest needs and wants. But you spend a lot of energy in your business, and with your messaging and what you share around people, like not people pleasing,
yeah.
basically,
Yep.
and just really owning, like you said, that root chakra is like, I have a right to be here now. Um, I'm here now. Like, this is me standing in that. So, what have you found as you've worked with clients, or have you, obviously writing your book, you went into this too, but if it's your time now, right? And it's your time, and you wanted to just, like, let's just say for the listeners who are like, okay, I can feel it. I feel it so good. And then I go back to my life and it's really hard not to go into the space of, okay, and like putting yourself lower on the list.
Yeah.
Because, and I want to just add here, because
Yeah,
you
sure.
mentioned it, sometimes the old religious programming, and the current, because it still gets perpetuated quite a bit, especially for women, about being self-sacrificing
Mm,
and letting your desires not, quote unquote, ruin you. Um, so I just wanted you to add that in, because I think for a
yeah.
lot of us, it's been, is this okay? Like, is
Yeah.
it okay? Who do I need to run this by? Right? We don't run it by ourselves first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, getting permission by committee, like,
Mm,
asking for permission by committee in your life. I see so many women doing this, and it's like, it
yeah.
doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. It really just matters what you think, because, and it comes down to, I believe it's all about making yourself a priority in your life. Because if you can't take the time, energy, and focus and attention that you give so freely to everyone else in your life, if you can't give that to yourself, you're never going to move forward and really fulfill yourself and feel full in life and feel content and peaceful and happy. And because and it's so funny because it's such a simple thing. You can't fix something or work on something unless you focus on it, but it's the point that everyone misses. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I want all these things, but I don't want to have to focus on myself. It's like,
Yeah.
that's what you have. That's where it starts. And
Mm.
I think too, we get caught up in thinking, what is everyone else going to think? If I change, will they still love me? If I change, will I still have a place in my family, in my life?
Mhm.
And the thing is that, as we change and grow, and I was just talking to another woman about this earlier, it's like some people will come along with us and some people won't. And we
Mhm.
have to allow them to just fall away or just become less prominent in our lives.
Some of your relationships will not survive your transformation,
No.
and that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay, because your transformation and your, I guess, inner evolution is it's why you're here.
Yeah.
You're not really here to like serve everyone. That's the biggest thing that I've come to know, because I am a producer and I love to, achieve, and I love to put things out there, and I love to influence, and I love all that stuff. But ultimately, like, I really, really have been internalizing that it's the whole purpose of life is to serve the divine in you and let that move through you and let it express to everyone else, because by doing that, you serve at the highest level.
That's what I was just going to say. It's like you want to, if you're one of those people who wants to feel like you're helping others, it's like the key is to help yourself first, because then you can touch that many more lives effortlessly.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from this inner pool of strength that's limitless.
Right.
It won't ever burn you out. You'll never get burnt out on working on yourself. No. You just won't.
No. And that's why I was saying, like, with Marion Woodman and Anne Baring, they, everyone has their own sacred private path with this, and it's not good, better, best, or better, worse than anything else. But I am so drawn to women and men who have just, like, and it's harder for women to do this, let's be honest, than it is for men, because men can stake their claim and speak, the system is sort of set up for them to have more safety around that, right?
Yeah,
more opportunities. 100%. But what I see now is this uprising of women who are just coming into valuing that, not being silenced anymore, and not having to outsource their inner authority, and not having to run it, like I said, running it by a committee, or institutionalizing their spirituality, if you will. That I see this resurgence. I see women feeling it, but they're not really sure how to not buck the system to the extent their life falls apart, or they get booted out, or that fear of abandonment.
Yeah.
I mean, like getting excommunicated from your church, let's just say, or something that pronounced for just speaking what you know.
Well, I mean, that's also too, part of my journey towards my own spirituality. It started really when I was a teenager, because it was just, I was brought up in a Christian home, Baptist in particular, a Baptist home. And my dad was a deacon in the church. So we were heavily involved. I went to church like Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and went to Baptist Bible camp in the summer. I mean, that was like my life for many, many, many years. And I mean, I'm not unhappy with that. It's just, it didn't resonate with me. Like the idea that a baby is born a sinner. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, just little things, and it kind of was eating away at me over the years that I was listening to it. And, and it's really just, it isn't Jesus. It's what man or mankind has, created around that as far as rules and control.
Yeah, and making Jesus and God in their own image, but that's a whole other thing.
Right, that's another. But I'm just saying, though, it's like for me, though, it was like, what was I just going to say? When I was like 13 years old, I said to my dad, because this is one thing that really was the breaking point for me. It's like, hey, Daddy, I'm like, so my question is, what if Jesus and Allah and Buddha and whoever else, these figures that people worship, or gods, maybe they're all the same. And maybe that's just because the people can all believe in something that they can't see, that's actually how we're all connected across the whole planet. And I thought it was a really great idea for a 13-year-old
to come up with.
And I literally came up with that. And I said to my dad, I go, what do you think about that? And he goes, well, you know what the Bible says. And if they don't believe in Jesus Christ as their personal savior, then they're not. I mean, and he kind of put it right back. Right.
Too bad for 99% of the population, because
I didn't argue with them, because I didn't argue with my dad, but I was just like, that just never sat right with me. And from that point on, I pulled away from that. And then when I moved out of the house at 18 years old and moved from upstate New York to California, to Los Angeles, I just went crazy and let go of all of that for many years. But then I rediscovered my own spirituality actually in my 40s. So, and it was once I recognized what was true for me, and that's what I was going to say. It's like, because I felt it in my gut, like, when you hear something and you get the goosebumps and you feel it in your belly and you go, like that, like that's what happens. I just go, you know, it takes my breath
Right.
away because I'm
Right.
like, oh, and again, breath, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God. And I wanted to just shout it from the mountaintops. It's like, I am unconditionally loved. I can't screw this up. It's like, oh my God. It's like, oh my
So
God.
for that freedom is what we're all wanting.
Yes.
And we spend decades waiting, because I did the same thing,
Yeah.
decades just waiting to be approved,
100%.
to be worthy. And that word has some charge on it, right?
Yeah, no
To be
doubt.
worthy. And really, like you said, ultimately, when your heart is in the right space, and even if it's not, you really can't screw it up because it's all learning.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
when we disassociate and we go into apathy and we don't care and whatever, we're still learning.
Yeah.
And for me, the most important piece, I think, of what we're kind of all, what we've been kind of like circulating around, is just that claiming that for yourself. So what does that look like? Give us a day in the life of like, hey, okay, here's chaos abounding. There's the news, there's the religious talk, there's the, community stuff, there's your family, there's your dear friends. Like, we have these systems that we love, that
Hmm.
we hold in a space of respect for what they brought to us, right?
Right. Right.
But then, as you know, this is very common right now because we are in a new era of the earth, and we have people waking up, but they aren't familiar with what they're actually feeling as an awakening. They
Yeah.
feel a stirring. Okay. Well, let's just say in the day of the life of like Julie, where you have a relationship, you have a partnership, you have this, that, the other, you have a business. How do you just come back to Julie? How do you just get back in your skin and like, okay, this is real. I'm not, and I'm telling, and I want us to paint this like real, very real picture of what you do so that you don't go into people pleasing mode.
Yeah. Well, okay. And it really just depends on the day, but I have certain things that I do. Okay. Because I just created a little free thing, a giveaway thing to help you connect to your body. For me,
Yeah,
it's
we can
always
talk about that right now if you want to.
okay. Yeah, I have this new freebie that I just created, and it's called Connect with Your Body and make health and weight release effortless. Because this
Mm.
is something I struggled with for years. So
Well, I want to
it,
say, when you said feeling full in life as like the goal,
yeah.
that resonated with me. It's like the antithesis of having a weight problem.
Yeah, it's so funny you bring that up because that's the thing. It's like I teach my clients. It's like, are you hungry for food or are you hungry for life?
Mm. Let's just be in the yumminess of that for a second. Like, that's so rich.
I mean, it really is. I mean,
Are
and
you
I
hungry for
know,
food, or are you hungry for life?
I mean, because that's the thing. It's like,
And you're just like wanting that permission. You're literally starving for it, and using food as the means to. I
yeah,
know I've been on that journey for some
yeah,
years.
me too, me too, me too. And it's just like, for me, it's like, it's those little connection points
Mm.
just with me and like it's something as simple as like because I've had hectic days. Certainly I still have hectic days and weeks even doing launches and different things, just running a business. I mean, it's a whole other level of life, right? But I get to do this. That's another thing. I have this get to versus got to attitude. It's like, I get to do this. Remember, I get to
Such
do
a
this.
beautiful reframe.
It's
Mm.
like, I get to do this. I get to work for I'm the coolest person I've ever worked for. Okay. I'm back on track. But I mean, little things for me, like a perfect day for me, in as far as connecting is I start every day with some movement, right? So I have routines that I do. I do weightlifting. I do, hit stuff. I'm a Pilates instructor, so I do that a couple times a week. I do yoga. I mean, and it really just depends on what I feel like doing that day. But I know that movement is how I connect. And it's the
Mhm.
easiest and quickest way for me to connect with my body. And I'm always thinking about how it makes me feel. And it makes me feel amazing. It makes me
And
feel
you said some, sorry to interrupt you, but you said
no worries.
something on your, when we were talking before we started recording, that when you work out, things work out.
Yes. When I work out, things
I
work
was
out. I
like, I've
mean,
never heard that before. That's amazing. I'm going to put
yeah,
it on a little card and put it on my mirror or something.
Yeah, it's really so true, because I can always tell when I'm off, I had a few weeks ago some things done where I couldn't, work out. I had a surgery done where I wasn't able to work out. And wow, did I recognize the power of that
Difference.
movement for me? And it's like, okay, so I had to up my meditation and up my journaling in those weeks, because
To
I had
compensate for, yeah.
for the
So you're
movement.
talking about connection points. So a day in the life of for Julie, if you
Yeah.
know that you want to stay aligned and it's like your ideal day,
Yeah.
you realize now that if these connection points aren't met, you're going to have a different experience.
Yeah.
So you talk about journaling and meditation and movement.
Yes. And also too, little things like, one of the big things for me was just, I found this 1 minute meditation. It's just inhale for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 10. Do it
Mm,
again. And just do that for 1 minute, just 1 minute. And you're going to think of other stuff, and that's okay. But just do that. Just think inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale for 10. That to me is like the quickest shift and a great connection for me. And I do it a lot. I also will go into my bathroom right behind me here, and I'll look at myself in the mirror, and I'll say 2 or 3 affirmations, and I'll end it with, I love you, looking right in my eye.
mm,
It took me years to be able to look in my eyes and say, I love you without crying, honest to God. But
mm,
that is another connection point. But the other thing that I think is a huge one that women in general, I think, could do more of, and it's being mindful when you're eating. Because we
mm,
oftentimes are just like shoving something in our mouth because we're trying to get to the next thing. And eating is really self-care,
yeah.
nourishing your body, giving it fuel that it needs, right? And so it's like I make myself sit down and sit down and just eat. No TV, no computer, no email, no phone, no magazine, no book, nothing. Just because I'm home by myself during the day. It's like it was so easy for me to get into the habit of turning on the TV and watching 30 minutes of some show. But I found that the more present I am when I'm eating my food, it's more pleasurable. I feel full faster because I'm
Mhm.
actually present, right? And I give myself permission to eat what I need to eat, knowing that I could go and eat again in 30 minutes or an hour or 45 minutes or whenever I need it again. Just,
Just to have
just,
that
just little things that, and
right.
and so many women I talk to, they're like, oh, I don't have time to do that. It's like, how long does it really take to eat a plate of food? About
Yeah.
7 to 10 minutes max.
One thing that helps me with that, and I love everything you're saying about this mindfulness and presence piece. One thing that's been really helpful for me to kind of kill two birds with one stone, because I have this block about stopping to eat lunch because I have a certain window when my kids are at school that I have to do my
Sure.
thing. And I love to be alone and doing my thing and writing and other things. So I will do the food prep the night before for a healthy lunch, like a salad or something. I'll grab it and then I'll go outside. I'll literally sit in the sun.
I
And
love that.
sometimes, of course, the weather is not whatever, but I know that when I'm like putting my feet on the ground in my
Oh,
backyard and just feeling the sun, I was doing that even in the winter time, like with my boots, just so I could feel the air, just so I
yeah.
could be in expansiveness. And I
Yeah.
found that when I started doing that, when I came back, I was more creativity. The creativity was it was flowing.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was just like sitting at my desk with a salad or something and just it
Yeah,
just
but you see, you
didn't.
can't sit at your desk. You have to sit at a table. See, I
Mhm.
sit at my dining room table.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, and I even if I'm really doing it right, I put out a placemat, a cloth napkin, and really take care of myself, right? And it's an
Yes.
intentional, and it's time for me, and I prep my food too a lot, or I have things in my refrigerator that I can grab and put together quickly, a salad with some chicken or whatever that is,
Yeah.
something, hard boiled egg, blah, blah, blah. And just, sit, but the prep is like 10 minutes maybe, and the food to eat it is maybe 10 minutes too, but it's like that time.
Yes.
And it's like sending your body
So
love.
you
But I
don't go
love
on
that
your
you,
phone. Even though you're by yourself, you don't go on your phone. You just sit
no.
with that meal and probably
Well, I
acknowledge the fullness. and stop
I'm,
when you've had enough. Whereas before we would just be like, I gotta hurry and get this done so I can get back to my day.
well, you know, and I learned, I started doing this because I wanted to teach it. And I don't want to teach anything unless I know it from an experience standpoint and I can say that it's actually something that's helped me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I started doing this probably last year, really faithfully, because I knew that I learned that I was doing intuitive eating without knowing that it was called intuitive eating. But then I learned about that. You know, so it's just like, just filling out my knowledge base and just my experiences and my knowing, because that's where I want to teach from, because I
Sure.
think that's a more powerful place.
And so that is everything that you just detailed. It is the antithesis of people pleasing. It's self-pleasing.
Yeah.
So the psychology of giving yourself that permission,
Yeah.
being a committee of one, to go back to the like
Yeah.
waiting for the permission from the committee. It's like permission granted.
Yeah.
You know, I just love that like queenly way of, hey, this is my life. This is my place setting. You know, this is my music. Here's the way I dance, right? And just coming back into claiming and sitting on like your own throne. I've talked to the listeners about this before, but the visual that I use to align me might seem like super self-aggrandizing, or it might seem a little like inflated, but it's actually not an ego based for me. But I have this visual when I want to stay aligned of me as the queen sitting on my inner throne,
Oh, I love
just
that.
inner my it's my inner sanctum. It's resting in my true essence, but it's more of the benevolent queen, not the snotty snooty queen.
Of
Like,
course.
um
Absolutely.
but it's just the stance that I take inside the posturing and the containment, and it's like, here's my courtyard and I choose who enters and what enters. And
Ooh,
if
that's
I
powerful.
feel like doing something that the court and the village or whatever, the king, even my husband, doesn't resonate with, I'm still going to do it because I feed myself and my court this way. Like ultimately I feed myself this way. And so the whoever these people are playing around me, my kids, my husband, ever, if I'm not sitting on that throne, they're going to know it. And if I'm not sitting on that throne, I will get railroaded, I will get doormatted, I will get
Mm,
bypassed. And I've just learned that when I'm in the mode of, and there are certain people I'm around that I feel like I'm getting dethroned real quick. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they
100%.
have the capacity to sort of like question, like, well, who do you think you are? And why are you doing this? And why don't you believe what we believe? And why aren't you doing this thing? And so it's just a practice and an invitation for me to come back and rest in and love them.
I love that. I love that. And it makes me think about how I dug myself out of my hole of people pleasing,
Yes.
because this is one of the things that, because I think that it seems so, it's so, any change can feel really big and really overwhelming, right? But it's like, if you just start small, I try and give people ideas for simple, really simple,
Mm-hmm.
easy, simple things you can do. And it's always starting with the people who trigger you the least. Like for me, it was like, I asked the guy that drops my newspaper, it's like, could you please not put it on the lawn, because this is right where the sprinkler hits. And so now he puts it on the sidewalk. You know, I mean, just stuff like that,
Simple
just
stuff.
something,
Yeah. Start practicing on people
right.
who are more benign that you're not
That's
going to
what
like.
I
Yeah.
mean. And it's like just little things like that. Or, like if somebody steps in front of you in line at the grocery store, it's like, I'm sorry, I was in line. You probably didn't see me. Oh, and it was so
So hard to
surprising.
do.
But what's so surprising to me is, this is what's so surprising to me, is that people are okay with it, like almost 100% of the time. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. I mean,
Mhm.
and it's like, and it made me realize how the power of my voice. It's like, I can just ask for what I want. I
Novel
mean, like,
revelation,
I
right?
know, I think about like how many women, like back to the chakras to kind of bring it full circle, but
Sure.
it's like, the throat chakra is attached to the thyroid. And just think of how many women
Hmm.
struggle with their thyroid and have
Oh yeah.
extra weight because of it around thyroid medication. It's like, it's directly connected to your voice. So
Yes.
if you are stuffing your voice, stuffing your
Hmm.
truth, stuffing, it's like, I'll bet you're overweight And I'll bet you don't speak your mind. And you're probably borderline thyroid issues or are on thyroid medication. It's like, and the women that can get really honest with themselves, and I've seen it happen. It's like once they recognize that that's really what they've been doing to themselves, because it's all connected.
Sure.
Our physiology and our emotion, everything is connected. When they finally start using their voice, they get off the medication.
Yeah.
They
That's
release the
what
weight.
I'm a living testament of that. I was on thyroid medication for years and years and years. And I just went off of them like 5 months ago. Finally, everything on my labs stabilized. I'm like not on. My sister had her thyroid removed. My mother, my grandmother, not my mother actually, but my mother does have thyroid issues. My grandmother had her thyroid removed. And this was stuff I was already teaching like 15 years ago. But I realized that there were so many layers and levels to me not speaking my real truth, my real knowing. But I was still people pleasing, and I didn't recognize that there was still a block here in this throat center, that something was rising up from my heart, because the throat is the highway of emotion between the mind and heart. So something an intimation or a gut knowing or something from my heart or my gut would rise up to meet my throat so I could speak and express. And I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready for that yet. Like I would hurt this person, or it would hurt this system, or this would and honestly, I'm not kidding, Julie, it came right down to like, do I want to be healthy? Is my health worth
upsetting that person? Oh.
And honestly, I was choosing to stay unhealthy purposely for so long, knowing that I wasn't speaking my truth because I wasn't ready yet. So I consciously chose to sacrifice my own health to keep the peace out here.
But at the same time, you probably had to recognize and be aware that that was what you were choosing to be able to finally turn it around. Oh, that's so powerful.
And it was like really hard and painful and excruciating. But I will never, and I repeat, never, ever sacrifice my personal health ever again in the name of pleasing another person.
Oh, I'm going to put that
on. It's not worth it.
That needs to go on a plaque. Cross stitch that. I will never again sacrifice my health to please others. It's like
never again.
But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, health is wealth. If you don't have your health, you're so many other things in your life just can't happen. Oh my God.
Well, I could keep going. Like you're bringing out the fire in me, girl. Like it's just there. So tell people where they can find you, Julie. And you already mentioned one of your offerings, but we would love to know how to connect to what you're doing to give us that ageless, yummy wisdom and give us permission to keep claiming our space.
Oh, well, I tell you, I love what I do. And if I can just touch a few people's lives, that's all that matters to me, really. But I have a Facebook group that I spend a lot of time and energy in, and it's called the Confident Women's Community, because that's really what comes out of taking back your life as you become more confident. And I love helping women learn to trust in themselves, trust the wisdom of their bodies, and trust in their worth, so that they can, shift all that energy back into doing whatever they want at any age. And I really believe that you can do anything you want at any age. And so I'm all about embracing the aging process too.
Can people find your book on Amazon?
Yes.
This time it's about you.
Yeah, my book is available on Amazon, or they can go to my website and I'll do a signed copy there. I still have a few left in my box. I could do a signed copy. But yeah, so it's on my website. It's abouttimebaby.com, or they can just go on Amazon. If you've got Prime, you get free shipping that way. But through me, I send it priority, and it costs a little bit more for me to ship it, but it's all good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was really inspired me to continue to, and I think more just validating all of us of the absolute necessity to please yourself first.
Yes.
And it's no longer just like a nice suggestion or like nice counsel or a good thing to do. We have to.
Yeah, it's essential.
We have to. We're in a new era of the earth, where more and more people, and it is starting with the feminine, are waking up to this concept of true embodiment and true coming into your own knowing and honoring that. So thank you for being such an affirming voice for us in this whole process. You're doing great work.
Oh, thank you so much, Cherie. I really appreciate your time and having me on your show. I love it. And I know I'm going to know you for the rest of my life. So I'm
Oh,
so
for
glad we're
sure.
going
We're
to get
totally soul
connected.
sisters now.